Guys, welcome back to Coliseum Forum this week. I am joined by Omar Spahi, Sina Grace. You may know these guys from Ben 10. Omar, I'm going to mess up the game. What was your first comic?
My first comic was a book called Xenoglyphs.
Xenoglyphs.
A self-published thing.
Welcome back to Coliseum Forum this week. I am joined by... Is that from you?
Omar Spahi, I think it's... Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I'm watching our own show.
Oh. and then Sina Grace. Xenoglyphs. Let's talk about that for really quickly. I actually read an interview when you had just done that book. That was basically the comic you always wanted to do your entire life, right?
Yeah, I mean, growing up as a kid, you always have ideas, and I just kind of put pen to paper one day, and all of a sudden that came out, and it's been a dream to work on.
But since then, I mean, you've done so many other things. You worked on Ben 10. I mean, Code 8 on Netflix, right? You've kind of been a little bit of everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is the third Image Comics comic I've been a part of, so I'm very grateful.
And Sina Grace, I think I already said this. I'm a huge fan. I told you this in the pre-interview. Three of my favorite things in the entire world are Cyberpunk, Power Rangers, and X-Men. And you've kind of worked in all those areas, right? With Go-Go Power Rangers, and then your Iceman miniseries. You're the coolest. Like, that's all. I mean, we can kind of end the forum now. I just wanted to say that.
I mean, that's all I strive to be. It's the coolest, not the smartest. Just the coolest.
Just the coolest. I mean, even like my favorite emoji. Like, you have a tattoo of my favorite emoji. I was like, yeah. Essentially, after this is over, me and Sina are going to run away together. I hope that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
If my wife is watching,
get on I-4 when there's no traffic.
There you go. But you guys have really been all over the place. You've worked in comics. Sina, you were an editor on Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
And then now you guys have come together as a team, and you've got your new book coming out. What is it, October 7th, I believe. So let's talk about that, because that's really exciting. It's basically a book that I can't think of from the top of my head, except for maybe something like Strangers in Paradise, where it's this like slice of life kind of comic, but really for like a new generation, right? Like, we're looking at like Friends, but in comic form for that demographic, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, Omar is the guy who kind of brought this all together, brought up the idea of sort of taking a slice of life comic, but then using our skills, like Omar's spent a lot of time in film and TV, and then I've spent a lot of time at the big two, and just kind of, taking all these great lessons we've learned, both professionally and then personally, and injecting it into a comic book. And anyway, Omar, I'm putting words in your mouth. I'm like, so this is Omar's story.
No,
Let me tell you about it.
Sina's right. I mean, Sina, I've been a fan of Sina since I started reading his work. Like, you look at Little Depressed Boy, Not My Bag, Self-Obsessed. To me, those are like, I know you're a fan of his X-Men stuff and his Power Ranger stuff, but to me, that stuff really speaks to my soul. And that's really a big inspiration for this book is Sina's other work. And we try to take that and do it justice and tell our own version of hopefully the next millennial version of Friends.
So how did you guys get hooked up to begin with?
Omar, answer that.
We went to high school together. So.
Oh, really? You guys go that far back?
We went that far back, and we didn't. I think we talked maybe once in high school, and from there we just hadn't spoken for a while, and then we were both in the comic book industry in different facets, and we just were like, hey, we should hang out, and we had coffee one day, and the rest is history.
So is that where getting together, is that where it happens? Like, you guys have coffee and you're like, hey, by the way, I have this idea for this comic.
Yeah, I think that's where it kind of came from. I think it came from conversations like, hey, I'm like a fan of yours, and I think this would be fun, and we're like, cool, let's do it.
Yeah, Omar's a good idea, man, and very good at motivating people to do their best work. So it was like, we had been flirting with doing stuff together in other capacities.
Right.
That sounded very sexual, but no. And yeah, ultimately this seemed like kind of the best melding of both of our minds. And what was great was, like, from the get-go, like, my big thing was, like, I was like, I don't want to draw it. I know this girl, Jenny, I want her to draw it. so let's hire Jenny to draw it. So it was just nice because everything kind of fit into place. And then I'm glad that Omar brought Little Depressed Boy up because we have, I mean, the creator, writer, letterer, and colorist for that series is coloring this book, Mick Struble. So it was just like, it turned into this really lovely project about friendship by a group of friends who intersected in different ways. Because like Omar was a fan of Little Depressed Boy, so it helped to have Struble join in, you know, in that sort of arena. And then I became friends with Jenny because I was a fan of Jenny D. Fine, the artist, and then Omar was a fan of Jenny. So it's, you know, there's a lot of fandom and friendship happening. I think that should be the letter column: fandom and friendship.
I like that. That's pretty good. So you guys, I've talked to a few creators that work as a team. I mean, you guys. I mean, I know Sina, you worked with Ryan on Go Go Power Rangers, right? What is it like being creative together? Like, I mean, so I know a lot of writers. Some of them they would never consider like co-writing. Like they have to sit down and it's a very individual process. But like with you guys working together on a book, like what kind of like what's the writing room like for that?
It's super organic. I personally like had thought I reached a point where it wouldn't make sense to do it again. I did a book called Burn the Orphanage with my friend Daniel Friedman, and it's the same process as this, where it's like, okay, we're two friends and we really have this idea that comes out of us organically. And that was a kind of very specific workflow because I was drawing the whole thing. And so we would just chat about it. And then I would like lay the story out and write a first draft of the script. And then he'd come in and do a really heavy rewrite and polish to make sure that it was us, you know, split evenly. But here with Omar, I mean, every issue's been a different story, right, dude?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's been like talking things out, text messages, phone calls, outlines, like, and we've all taken on different parts of the work and different fronts. Like, you know, it's not like we have an exact structure where you're doing the first draft and I'm doing the second draft and, you know, we're going back and forth. It's like sometimes I'll do some pages, sometimes you'll do some pages. And sometimes it's like we've outlined it to a point where we know what the story is. So like the through lines are there, the themes are there. But our process is we trust each other and it's really shown in the book. And I think it works great.
Awesome. So this is something we touched on kind of in our pre-interview, and this is something I wanted to talk about in the actual interview. I mean, you guys have been all over the industry, not even just the comic book industry. Like Omar, you started out in like real estate when you were like 15, right? That's like the true story.
Yeah, no, I started out in real estate and I decided that I love real estate, but I love comic books a lot more. And I just started making comic books. And it's been a passion of mine ever since.
Very cool. And Cena, I mean, you were an editor. I mean, you've worked at the big two, but you've worked in indie and you know underground. I think I read that you've done some zines and things like that too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: like, I mean, you guys have had like you've been kind of all over the place. What is your favorite part of the comic book industry? I mean, are you guys do you feel like it's writing? Do you feel like it's art? Like where are you guys at? Is it all of it?
Oh, it's going to the comic store and just buying them and having money enough to buy like all the comics you want. Like I just got like this like extra payment for something that I wasn't expecting, and like my gut was like, I'm gonna go to the comic store and I'm gonna spend like instead of like a very conservative like $16 to $20, I'm gonna spend like 50 to 60 because it's been so long since I've been able to. Yeah, it's been so long since I've been able to be like, I'm getting some floppies, I'm getting a trade, I'm getting like one of those like $30 Fantagraphic books that are so pretty on your shelf. So I miss the halcyon days of just buying a book. But honestly, I think it's the most fun for me to just keep talking over Omar. The most fun for me is like at the beginning where the sky's the limit and you're coming up with this thing and it's all sort of coming together and you don't have to do the hard part, which is like drawing it or fleshing out the sequences that you're telling yourself in the beginning you'll figure out later. You're like, I'll figure it out later. But this moment right here, this is the moment. But also drawing it too. I love drawing, and I'm really glad that we're getting it together. I do get to draw some pages here and there, and then you know even with Iceman, I somehow had tricked Marvel to let me draw pages. But what was great was it was like I didn't have to do a monthly book. I could just sneak in,
Right.
put my little fingerprint on it, and then walk away and still meet all the deadlines.
Right. And then for Omar, what about you? I mean, even more than Cena. I mean, your career's been all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I love the process. Like, I really think like it's never really been work to me. It's always just been like having fun with my friend.
Yeah.
And to me, that's been like the dream, you know, like just getting to go back and forth and like been like, here's the idea, here's the theme, here's the moment that we're trying to build to, and then, you know, talking to Cena and then having just real interactions come from it. It's just been like so much fun, and I think I just enjoy it. It just makes the whole thing like just feel like having fun with my friend instead of work.
You know what else I'm gonna add? Oh, did I talk over you again?
No,
No, you're
he for some reason he's on a little bit of a delay. I don't know if it's our side or his side, but you'll see him like you'll hear him stop talking, but then like it's like an old like Japanese like dubbed movie.
Hey,
So
Sorry
in fact,
about
we
that,
don't even
man.
know, that might not even be Omar's real voice. It might just be like some guy like in a voice booth, like, you know, just translating whatever he has to say.
yeah, it's not Omar's voice. I can attest
See?
to that.
See?
My favorite, another favorite moment too is when you get the like lettered PDF from the letterer, especially if the process is the colorist finishes the colors first. Like different publishers do different things. You know, you might look at the lettering over the black and white artwork while the colorist is wrapping up. But in the case of getting it together, it's great because Scribble will have already finished the coloring. And then our letterer, Sean Connaught, I haven't said it out loud. I've just typed it 1,000 times. But anyway, we'll just get to see the whole book. And it's so neat because even just the notion of like, you know, these like weird little things you put in there in terms of like, oh, I you know, like I want this sound effect to like look like this, and then to see it, you know,
Right.
and next to the coloring, and it's like it's almost more gratifying to me than getting the finished product in your hands when you get your shipment or when you go to a comic store and see it. It's like like nearing the finish line is such an awesome feeling for me.
So it almost sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like kind of the same philosophy we have at the Coliseum. Like we work in comics to support our comics habit, right? But what's it like for you guys to spend, you know, however long it takes to get a book, you know, started, plot, writing, you know, scripted, drawn, and then finally that Wednesday you walk into a shop and like there's your book. Like what is that like?
I mean, it's like, well, sometimes it's heartbreaking because you go into the store and they don't have it.
Oh,
That's happened.
Like, I've definitely had that happen where I, you know, like, even, well, I think because of COVID, but like with the Green Lantern 80th anniversary special that I had a story in, and it was there was good stories and bad stories with that, where like I would go into a store because I wanted a variant that wasn't the one DC sent me, which I have 10 copies of this one, but
right.
you know, you want to get them all. They're
Right.
like Pokemon. And so the good version of the story was I'd go in and they'd be like, we already sold out, and you'd be like, damn, cool.
Yeah.
And then the bad version of the story was, you know, we didn't order that, and you're like,
What?
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry. Did you do the whole like, do you know who I am, or you just like, oh, okay, thank you?
No, never. That's so weird. I couldn't do that.
See, this
is
is
also like,
this is
it's like, oh, do you know who I am? I'm like, I'm like sea level. Like,
this is why I couldn't do what you guys do though, because I would be a megalomaniac with it. Like I would do do you know who I am, or like I'd be in the back like just like autographing like every copy of the book, like, and then I couldn't not do it.
I worked at a comic store, so I feel like maybe it might be like my perception of how others had done that when I'd come in, maybe,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And also the shame, like, listen, like, you know, Omar and I have both been, like, we've both been so ambitious and literally working in one way or another in and towards comics since we were, like, but children. Like, I interned at Top Cow when I was in high school and worked at the comic store. So, you know, I feel like I also went through the shame of testing out if a store knew who I was, and,
Right.
and then, them being like, no. And then similarly, like the shame of being like, well, do you want me to sign what you have? And then being like, no. So, I think I've been humbled.
It's I can say, going back to the original question, there's like a great sense of pride when you see your work on the shelf. And I think like comic books take a lot of effort that people don't see. Like, it's not just like you have this idea and you write a script and it's out there. Like, there's so much behind the scenes stuff, and you to finally see it out on the shelf, no matter what, is a huge accomplishment. And like, just like Cena said though, like I try not to make like a big deal out of it or anything like that. I mean, if I'm there in the store and like someone's looking at the book, I'll be like, hey, I worked on this, and then have a little conversation and like see if I can, get people to get excited about the book. I want to just add a personal touch if I can.
Okay. No, that's awesome. But I mean, you guys both actively still go to comic shops. Like, I mean, I know Cena mentioned Omar. I saw a video of you at Nowhere Comics where you have your pool, right?
Absolutely. Like I try to go to comic shops all the time. So for me, I always want to go to a comic book shop, local, not local. I'm just a fan of the industry.
I'm super polyamorous, and I don't have a pull list because I just go everywhere. But if I do want something, I will set it. I will call and have it set aside. But I think my main one right now, just because it's so close to me, and because their clientele isn't quite the like weekly big two shopper, is Secret Headquarters in Silver Lake.
Okay.
But I run across town and sprinkle my cash related fairy dust over all the stores.
Right.
And I still go to Heidi Ho, the store that I worked at when I was in high school. They're in Santa Monica, and they got beat up pretty bad by the uprisings and stuff during Black Lives Matter. So I went there and did some shopping, and then gave them a bunch of original art to sell on eBay.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's just like, well, yeah, I mean, what else are you supposed to do? Like,
no, that's awesome. And Omar, we lost you there for like a second right at the end when you were talking about comic shops. I'm sorry, bud.
No, it's all good. I mean, I'm just like Cena. I'm just a huge fan of comic shops, and I go every week if I can, and I try to stick to a few comic shops when I was in LA. But I mean, I'm like Cena. I'm a fan of all the shops, and when you work in comics, all the owners for all the shops, and you just want to go and hang out with your friends.
No, that's awesome. All right, so this has been driving me crazy the entire time we're talking. You guys teased some tea when we were getting started. How much longer do I have to wait until we get to hear about this? Like, is there like a secret word I have to use, or is there like a trigger for this that you guys had planned?
You said it was tea.
Okay, good. There it is.
Cena, you want to spill the tea? Go for it.
Oh, okay, yeah. We're very excited about getting it together, and I definitely didn't anticipate this or see this happening. And I think it was actually Image Comics that was like, hey, like, do you guys want to do some variant covers? And we got one of my favorite illustrators, and probably one of Omar's too. And, I think like the hint I can give, because, you can guess and we don't have to confirm or deny. It's a very high profile illustrator who's worked on one of my books. So I'm just really excited to reunite with that person and get a really beautiful variant cover. And then we're doing a store variant. And what's lovely about all of these is just getting to see other people interpret, this thing you've been working on for years. But then also they all kind of play into sort of the riff that we were doing with the first issue's cover, which is very clearly an homage to Friends. And we get to kind of keep playing with sort of the TV shows we grew up with and the TV shows that influenced the series. So I'm so excited, and it's so dumb. Like, you get like, that's how you love this gig, is like, you get super stoked about variant covers.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the key too, is we talked about people who like we'd want to collect,
right.
Like whose covers we'd want.
Right.
So yeah, you heard it here. Joe Madureira cover word.
No. But we do have some really, really awesome artists that I'm like super, super excited about. And, I think it's going to be really special. And I think the collector's market is, I go crazy for variant covers sometimes. And I think the collector's market is going to love it too.
So, okay, if somebody's walking to a comic book shop, what is your elevator pitch for getting it together? Like, who is this book for? Like, who when they walk in, I'm like, hey, I've got a book for you.
Do you want to do this or should I do it, Omar?
I'll take this
Both?
one.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
a cat. Can we take a cat break? Because there's a cat back there.
Is it mine or yours? Oh, yep.
Your cat. My cat's dead.
Oh,
Whoa, that got
sorry.
dark.
It's like a ghost cat in the back, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Um, and yeah, so I was, so I'll give you the quick elevator pitch for the show. Breakups are really tough, and it gets even tougher when you're dating your best friend's sister. Like, do you have to break up with your best friend too? And I think, we answer all those hard hitting questions and more in getting it together.
Yeah, I mean, and then and then if you really want to get someone in super fast, we just say like it's a play on Friends, but for a millennial audience. Like it's it's that time in your 20s when your friends are your family, but things are way more complicated now with internet dating and just the expansion of like what romance looks like whether it's polyamory or queer love or open relationships. So yeah, it's a really fun slice of life book.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this, without giving away any of the plot, hopefully. Like, can we answer that question? Like, what do you think if you break up with your best friend's sister? Like, do you have to break up with him as well? Like, what do you guys think? I'm saying yes. Like, I think it's awkward at that point, right? Like, it's gonna be weird.
I think.
Go ahead, Omar.
No, go ahead.
I just think it's hard. Like it's, and that's something that, and this was kind of what made me really feel safe and trusting of Omar, was that like to him the real relationship that was worth exploring, the real like love that needed to kind of be invested in was with the best friends Sam and Jack, because they don't want to break up, they don't want to be apart, they don't want to compromise this friendship, even though they have complete respect and admiration and understanding of the context of the situation that Jack's sister Lauren is involved, and obviously family runs thicker than friendship. So I think that's what we had a lot of fun with, is that the reader doesn't really know what the right decision is to make here, and everyone messes up in the book, and everyone also shows their love for one another in really kind and beautiful ways. So it's complicated. That's what's great, is it's complicated, and we're not here to like tell you there's one right way or wrong way. We're just here to show you the consequences of everyone's actions.
Well, so let me ask both of you guys this, and Omar, it seems like this is you pitched everything. What's the old adage?
Hey. I think I pitched Lauren being in a band.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, that's a super cool tidbit as well. Let me ask you guys this: have you guys been in a situation similar to what happens in the book?
Not that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say not that exact situation, but I think we've all been in that situation where your friend is dating someone and you become friends with that friend.
Yeah.
And they break up. Like, are you still allowed to talk to that other friend? Like, that's just a messy situation. It doesn't even have to be family or anything like that. Like, I'll give you an example. A personal situation to me that happened is my friend broke up with his girlfriend, and I wanted to reach out. We'd all been hanging out together for like a year. I just wanted to, check in and see how she's doing. And, I'm obviously like, I'm married. I'm not interested in anybody else. And I'm just like, hey, it's been a friend of mine for a year. And my friend was like, how could you? And I was like, what do you mean, how could I? Like, it's a situation where you're friends with that person regardless of their relationship status. And so I think it's just something worth exploring, and I think it's something that really needs to be discussed. And there's social rules throughout our life, and I think this is one that needs to be expanded on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we I mean, and there is a lot yeah, the book is very personal, but also, constructed to honor the power of fiction. It's funny because I was rereading issue one and I was like, oh man, like this guy Jack Dates is like, I forgot that I just basically like took a very personal anecdote and just like transcribed it for comic books. Like I dated a really shady guy, and actually, like, this doesn't spoil anything, but when the shade kind of presented itself, and I was in a situation where I felt a little like unsafe. A friend kind of really came through and showed up and sort of like puffed his chest in my honor, and so we got to put that in the book and just sort of have that moment, where Sam gets to do that for Jack, and in the middle of all this other stuff too. Like, no, it didn't happen. Oh, it did happen at a rooftop party, but not quite as cool as in the book. Not in San Francisco, at least.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask. You guys both live in SoCal, but the book is set in NorCal. Have you guys spent any time up there?
Yeah, I went to school at UC Santa Cruz, and I'm glad that it didn't burn down this week. And then
Yeah.
I have spent multiple like months at a time in that city, and it felt like a cool city too, because it's been on the verge of change for so long. It's always changing, but especially now with tech. And I think this is, in terms of being a love letter, not only to our 20s, and this is, I hope Omar feels this way too. It's also a love letter to like what San Francisco has been to me, and the people I have known there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just I've been there. Some of my fondest memories are doing the Image Expo there for every single year it's been there. I don't think I've ever missed an Image Expo. They moved it up to Portland recently, but I have really fond memories going there. I met my wife at Santa Cruz, where Sina went to school, and so like I just think of NorCal really really fondly, and I love the city.
And so just based on that, like, it being a love letter to your 20s and that area of the country, I mean, really, is that how you guys came up with like, yeah, okay, San Francisco, that's it, that's our setting?
I want to give Sina full credit there.
Oh,
Sina,
cool. I was like, I don't remember anything. I'm so bad at interviews because like when like, and that's the thing about creating an art, you don't like the momentous things you don't remember. Like I don't remember half of this stuff, and these are the moments that are going to define, mine and the next like few years for me and Omar, if not the rest of our lifetime together. So anyway, but no, Omar, give me credit then, because I quite don't remember.
No, Sina, we had talked about, I think, originally doing the book in LA. I think I was like, hey, let's do it in LA. And then we were like, LA's too close to home. We want something that's like really feels like it would like work with the band scene, something where it's like you're going out there and making it, and really felt like, Sina especially really felt that like the scene was really come to life in San Francisco. We literally Googled the popular bars and clubs where they would actually where Nipslip would actually play. We really put a lot of effort into understanding the city, and taking our own personal experiences, as well as using the power of the internet to really get a chance to know the locations.
And
you know what it was too? I'm realizing. Sorry, may I interrupt?
No, go ahead.
You?
No.
I'm realizing now, and Omar talking about this. The other thing too was like, I knew that we wanted to tell the story about this woman who is finding her place in the local music scene. And I think because I have a lot of, like, I've made a lot of friends here in the local punk scene. I wanted to make sure that there was also enough separation from those relationships. Like I could take anecdotes or vibes, but not straight up just plagiarize my friends' lives here. And so I was really drawn to this like moment, this very clear moment I had in the Bay Area, where my friend Christine was in this band called Finest Dearest, and she is a huge inspiration for the Lauren character. And I think, it helped make sense to just be like, okay, let's remove it from LA, so that way none of my friends here feel exploited. And then let's, the Bay Area is also, everything Omar was saying, it's so rife with like all this mood that that we should explore. So yeah, there we go. I'm just starting remembering all this now. Like it's like my B vitamins kicked in.
No, and I know it's kind of weird to like kind of talk so much about the setting of the comic, but and I'm about to offend an entire coast of the country, but I grew up in New Jersey, which is in the Northeast, just outside of Philadelphia. So my upbringing was completely different. But I knew when I was as a kid, I was like, when I grow up, I want to own a comic book shop and I want to live in California. So as soon as I was old enough to move to California, that's exactly what I did. But I ended up in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. I lived in San Jose and Santa Clara, like that area. Not technically the Bay Area, but kind of the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And when I got out there, it was almost jarring how different people in California were compared to like Philadelphia or New York City. Like, not in a bad way, but people were just like a little bit friendlier, and like, there was still kind of the rush of being like a metropolitan area, but like, you didn't see a lot of like people fighting in the streets, and like people were just a little more tender. Does that make sense? Like the West Coast, a little softer, but not in like an offensive way. Like my first week there, like I was standing outside and some guy was like, "What the F are you looking at?" And I'm from like outside of Philadelphia, so I'm like, "What are you looking at?" And he's like, "Nothing, man. We're cool." And I was just like, if that was the East Coast, like that guy would have probably shot me. So talking about the setting so much, I'm really excited to see something that typically you would see it set in like Toronto or New York City, like be in the Bay Area. I think that's gonna be super cool. That's one of the things I'm excited about for the book specifically.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not wrong in terms of dude. Like it's funny because if I've ever dated anyone who's from the East Coast, or like if I've let's just be completely honest, like, or hooked up with someone when I'm in the East Coast, it's like God, why are you so mean to me? And they're like, what are you talking about? You're the best. And it's like, oh, it's just East Coast vibes.
Yeah, it's just how we are.
Like,
yeah.
I literally thought this guy hated me. Like we were spending like a week together or something, and I just was like, "Do you like dislike me?" And it's like, "No, he's from Philadelphia."
Right. Yeah.
It's funny, for me, like, just to add in, it's like I think that like LA has, or like California in general, has this illusion of being fake, because like people are so nice here, like they won't confront you if you do something wrong. They'll try to like talk to you in a nice way, or talk to other people around you, and people are like, oh, you're so fake, you did this, you did that. Whereas in New York, if you're in front of somebody on the subway, they'll tell you right to your face, hey, move out of my way.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a difference in geographical location and culture, and it's really powerful, but it's just what you prefer. Some people are like, I'd rather take the honesty 10 days out of 10, and some people are like, I'd rather take the personalness.
Right. Yeah, no, agreed. Like I said, it was a little jarring for me at first, because I'm used to like hey, can you get out of my way? Or like somebody holding a door for me. That was unique as well. Like, oh, hey, what a gentleman. Thank you. Do you guys make it to the East Coast like frequently for like conventions or work or anything like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If we weren't in COVID, I'd have gone to New York twice by now. And it's a bummer that I am not. And I think I was supposed to go to Connecticut this summer too. I don't even remember anymore. That's the thing, is like, what's any of this now? But yeah, I love going out there. I especially when it's somewhere I've never been, and I get to like, like especially if a convention flies me out, and I get to try a new city and be like, sweet, Boston, crossed you off the list.
Right. I don't know if anybody's ever said sweet about Boston. I personally have a gripe with Boston, so. But listen, and if you guys ever make it to Florida, I totally invite you guys to come to Coliseum, and you can definitely pull do you know who I am? It's totally cool. I give you guys full permission to do it. You can stand in the back of the store, sign your books. That would be awesome. That is if you guys can ever make it to Florida again, because of COVID. But with that said, let me ask you this, going back to the conventions, what is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to either of you at a convention?
I have one if Omar needs a second to think about it.
Go for it.
I was in Pittsburgh for a comic convention, and they were like, oh, we want to give you a spotlight panel. And I was like, wow, cool. That's never happened to me. Awesome. And so they had some of the panel spaces were on the convention floor, just like in corners with rows of seats. And then, it's not like I'm Stan Lee. So there were probably like 7 people who were there for me, and like 20 people just looking to rest their feet, which is all fine. But then what happened was a group of furries um, congregated, and I can't remember if they were resting or charging their iPhones. But then like one of them started sort of like engaging me. Um, and there was nothing else to do on this panel because like no one in the audience gave a shit about me. So I was like, I'm just gonna engage this furry back. And then the furry came up on the stage, and it it was really weird because like I don't know furry speak. Like I don't know. I
Yeah.
know that they can get aggressive and they can get cuddly, and but I don't know the intricacies of that, and so it just got really weird. And the furry like I don't like I the furry got like a little agitated, and it just turned into this like super like Curb Your Enthusiasm like awkward moment that my friend got all on camera. And I think it's somewhere in my Instagram highlights, but
Oh, I'm definitely going to find
that
this.
was that was weird because I thought like, oh, this will make things interesting is if I shared the stage with a furry without having any sense of how to communicate or befriend a furry. So that was that was the weirdest thing that happened to like me personally.
So this is just like a group of furries that show up at your spotlight panel, and like I know you said you don't know this, but like I wonder what like a group of furries called. Is it like a murder of furries or like a gaggle of furries? Like
A Furby of furries?
a Furby
A
of
cuddle
furries?
of furries. I like cuddle of furries.
Oh, I don't. Omar, how about you?
So this is also just a terrible being young story. But I remember one time, I was doing a show out in Chicago, and they got me out there, and the show host has like, hey, listen, we're going out tonight. So we went out, and being young and probably just barely have been 21 at the time, I went out and I had one too many, and as a result, the next morning it was probably one of the most embarrassing things ever. People would come up to get their comic books and get stuff signed, and I literally have to put my head down on the table because I could not keep it up because I was so hungover. So that is one of the lessons I learned not to know when to go home
Right.
when you're having fun.
I mean, I've heard you guys like you creators when you're at cons and stuff, you guys go hard.
Yeah,
I mean, oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's just a lesson you got to learn and figure out when to go home. When you got to know when's the time to call it.
I yeah, I feel like like I mean like a colleague made an observation about another colleague of mine, and I'm trying to make sure I don't do this in a way that makes anyone feel singled out or called out, but they pointed out like it's like I see so and so like after hours at conventions like stoned and on acid and super drunk, and I'm just wondering like what are you thinking? Like this is a professional context, like this is a professional environment, like I would never want to be that way in front of other professionals, but B also like these people have like hiring power, and it's like not good to like present yourself so messily. And I've been guilty of getting pretty messy, but I also really took that to heart. It's like, right, this is a professional setting, and not only are there colleagues around me who could make judgments about my actions, but there are also people who could be fans or readers of my work, and it's like it would be so disappointing if and because I have like gotten drunk and like given someone a very disappointing interaction. Oh, hello, there's a cat in Omar's screen. Yay.
Can we ask what's the cat's name?
That's Iris.
Okay.
You can tell I'm a fan of the Flash.
That was
Iris.
his last name West. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, sorry. So anyway, yeah. All that is to say is like I've gotten messy, but I try to curb it because it's the other thing too is like it's so unprofessional to be hungover when a business or company flies you out. Like what's funny is this last New York Comic Con, Boom totally thought I was a hungover mess because I was 20 minutes late to this massive Power Rangers panel. And it was only because I scheduled everything on my phone on the West Coast, and everything got scheduled on my phone to Pacific Standard Time. And so I was literally in my hotel room just being like, wow, how great. Like, I gave myself like so many hours to like sleep in and relax. Like, how nice of me. Thanks, past me. And then I was getting text messages from people at Boom being like, are you okay? Like, the panel's happening. And it was so embarrassing. And I had to explain to every single one of these people that like paid to fly me out, you know, and then it's like in front of, like, I'm in front of like Power Rangers I love, you know, like Austin St. John was there, like fuck.
Yeah.
And Karen Ashley, who was like the nicest person on earth, and you don't want to look like an idiot in front of Karen Ashley. So it was terrible because I was actually being super professional, and I was not, and I did not drink that much that trip, partially out of wanting to be really responsible and just saying like, wait till Sunday, like wait till the convention is over, because it's just better to, you know, play it safe and play it right. So, but yeah, but also I've been messy.
So Philip or Ross, if you're watching, that is what happened. He just misscheduled it. He was not out partying. Guys, this is really probably one of my favorite forums I've ever done. You guys are super, super awesome. I am super excited for your new book, just because, again, it's not something you see every day, right? But yeah, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for stopping by Coliseum Forum. I'm very serious. If you ever make it to Florida when we can all travel again, please come see us, because you guys are the coolest. Like, absolutely.
Count on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. I have a lot of family out there, so I'll definitely be stopping by Coliseum of Comics and coming by and giving you a big fat hug.
I get a hug now? Like, we're like, that's, I mean,
Yes.
we're getting kind of serious already. This is good. But no,
Definitely.
again, guys, this has been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Getting it, yeah, wow. I don't know why I cannot say the title of your book without messing up. Getting It Together, in stores October 7th. If you haven't already, get on sub. We will have it for you at Coliseum of Comics on October 7th. It's going to be a really, really cool comic.
Sweet. Thank you so much for having us.
And if you guys want to hang out for 1 second,